Today's episode is brought to you by you. That's right. Every single episode created on Classic Mini DIY is made with the help of our patrons and our long-term part sponsor, 7 Mini Parts. If you want to see more mini stuff and more videos in the future, please consider supporting the channel on patreon.com/Classic Mini DIY or by checking out some of my awesome merch like t-shirts, stickers, and all sorts of other really cool stuff at merch.classicminidiy.com. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Now, like I said, we are going to be replacing the lights on my Classic Mini, the headlights specifically. Now, the lights we're going to be using were sent over to me from a company called Dapper Lighting. I reached out to these folks and said, hey, I am interested in replacing the halogen bulbs on my Classic Mini Cooper. And they said, well, we have a perfect set of LED bulbs for you to use. Now, they sent over 2 different types of their lighting systems, and they have quite a few other ones depending on the kind of look and the kind of goal that you're looking for on your headlamp setup. Now, I am going to go into more detail about these bulbs themselves here shortly, but I do want to add a little disclaimer. These were sent to me for free, so I'm doing this install fully sponsored by Dapper Lighting. However, that said, I am going to try and do my best to give you the most impartial review of these lights that I can. Now, the 2 different lamps they sent over are used for kind of 2 different things, but they will achieve virtually the same end goal. Now, the one on my right side here is the OE7. This is targeted towards folks who are looking for a perfectly OEM replacement for their standard bulbs. Now, the cool thing about these bulbs is they don't require any sort of crazy off-the-wall wiring. They really are simply plug and play. You can see here this uses a standard H4 plug, and this plug is found on most cars. This is what's used on pretty much the majority of cars that are on the road these days. Now, these bulbs come with active cooling on the backside of the actual lamp assembly. This has a small fan, and these are going to run and cool the systems that turn on these high-intensity LEDs and will keep them at good operating temperature when you're using them. And as a result, sometimes there is a little bit of modification required for some of the bulbs. And the funny thing is the bulb that requires the modification that I've found on the Classic Mini is not actually the bulb with the longer end here. It's actually the OE7 that has the bigger control box module here. So I'm going to talk about how to modify your car and get these working so that you can install them on yours. It's not too hard, but it does require a little bit of cutting. Before we get into the install, I do want to mention 2 more things. One is these bulbs, while they are more expensive than probably most of the LED bulbs that you see on the market, not all LED headlamps are built the same and have the same level of quality. I can say for a fact that the majority of the LED bulbs that you are seeing folks replacing on their minis and putting on their cars are not high quality in the way that these are. And they also don't come with the 5-year warranty that these come with, which is pretty damn cool. Now, as far as long-term usage, I won't have any sort of update for that for a little while. Obviously, I'm going to get these on my car and I want to use them for a bit before I make an assessment there. But my initial reaction to the way that these feel, they're very, very high quality. This whole control module system's like super intuitive. They have a little document for those of you who get the LED 7s. And then, of course, with the OE 7s, it's pretty much just plug and play. Although it does have a pretty cool halogen bulb in here to supplement your turn signal if you wanted to add some additional turn signal in the bulb itself. Pretty cool stuff. But the second thing I want to mention is that because I am installing the OE7s on my car, these ones right here, I am going to have a set of LED 7s that they sent me here that I won't be using but could go to a good home. So I've decided I'm going to be giving these away on this episode. All you have to do is like or dislike the video, subscribe, and leave a comment down in the comment section. I'm going to do a random pick of those comments here in probably about a week, and the one lucky winner is going to win this set right here of LED 7s to be a direct replacement for your existing halogen bulbs. So, pretty exciting stuff. Now, anyways, let's get into the installation. Let's get into how these work and some of the visual differences and things you'll have to do on your car. Now, before we get started chopping up everything, I do want to take a minute here. You can see the halogen original bulb on the left side here. This is the standard bulb that comes out of the Mini. Then the OE7 in the center. This is the standard OEM looking replacement that I'm going to be putting in to replace the halogen bulb. And then on the far right here, this is the LED7, the more modern but slightly more effective lighting system. This is going to have a little bit more brightness, a little bit more conciseness than the OE7. Both are great LED bulbs. However, the LED7 is a little bit more superior in its performance. Now the first thing we need to tackle is removing the headlight. Now, if you guys don't remember, or you haven't been with the channel for a really long time, one of the first episodes I ever did was actually teaching you how to replace the headlights on your Classic Mini. And these are the same headlights that were in that video, which is pretty crazy. They have held up pretty well. Now, I have these little like mesh guards over my headlights, so we got to take that off first. Next thing we're going to do is remove the retaining ring on the outside, and I have found the easiest thing to do is to spin it a little bit and to pop it off nice and slow. Now I will say that most of these retaining rings have a small set screw in them, but mine doesn't have one. I never installed it, and I'm not too worried about it. It's never been a problem. So we'll take that off, set it to the side. Now we need a Phillips screwdriver to remove the retainer that holds on the front of this, this light here. And now when you take the last retaining screw out, don't forget that the light will be loose, so it does have a tendency to fall out, and it's made of glass and you don't want it to break. Now with that retainer out, you'll lift the bulb out and you'll simply pull the plug out, just like that, and your bulb's out. So with that out of the way, we are going to move on to the actual leveling cup here. This is what's used using these screws right here to level out and point your lights in the correct direction. Now I can see here that the spring that I'm using in here is a little bit tired, so we're going to be replacing that as well. But this comes off pretty easily. The easiest way I've found, if your headlights are already adjusted, to keep the adjustment on them, the way I take this out is by simply removing the spring, and then this whole cup kind of slides down and out of the way. Now one thing I want to mention before we head back in there is you might find that your plug behind your headlight looks a little bit different, but you'll also find that the headlight plugs, even on the Mark I Minis, still wore the standard H4 plug, which makes it considerably easier to change these bulbs. There's no strange connector type that you have to deal with. These are just standard H4 plugs, which makes the actual transition to a new bulb a lot easier. Now on my right side, I have an unmodified cup. This is one of the headlight bulb cups that I have not modified yet. And this is what it looks like after it's modified. Now you can see that a large chunk has been taken out of this, and that is so that the actual module, that little black module, can fit back here. Now, the nice thing about these is that they are hidden, so you don't have to worry too much about how they look, how the cut looks and everything. This one actually ended up coming out pretty nicely, but what this is going to allow you to do is feed the bulb down into space here. And we'll rotate this until the notches line up. And now you can see the bulb sits down into that cup, and this ridge right here is actually not even used. There's nothing that actually sits down on that. I think this is about structure, to add a little bit of structure and security, but this is going to allow this module to come and sit right over here, forget which orientation, just like that, off to the side and out of the way. Now, this is going to require a little bit of trial and error, and what I would recommend doing when you're cutting these is cutting a small amount first and cutting more and more and more as you need it. Because otherwise, you're going to end up cutting way too much out, and you definitely don't want that, because these are technically original to the car. So, now the easiest way to do this I found is to have a template that you can use to actually cut up and mess up before you actually cut your own. However, that said, most of you probably won't have a spare, and the way I did this is I actually cut, you can see the small hole that's right down in here is the one that I am going to be using as a reference. That's where your spring mounts in, and then up to the left, about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, That is about 2.5 inches for those of you who use the imperial system. If not, I put the metric equivalent on the screen. Now with that cut out up in the corner here, that's how that black module fits in there without any problem. And that is, again, from the small spring notch right here that I use to actually clamp the spring in. So let's go ahead and mark this one off so that we can get it cut. Now the parts that are the most important are the ones at the bottom here, because you actually are going to be cutting it, looking at it like this, and obviously without it marked on the back side, it's hard to see. So the way that I do this is I find the side here and I draw just onto the other side. And so now we have the notches on this side, which I can use to sketch this out. Now it's not rocket science here, but you do want to try and keep a straight line as you move up towards the top here. And I use these small ribs right here as a reference, so I don't actually go much above those small ribs, you can see. Now, with that out of the way, all I need to do is get my angle grinder out and we can cut these suckers up. All right, and there we have it. The headlight cup is modified so that the bulb can fit in there with no problems. Now let's go and install this cup. Now the cool thing about this process is that it is largely the exact opposite to install this. Now the way that I found that this fits the best is with this 3-prong sitting on this side right over here, and I actually run the spring over the wire to connect up to the actual leveling bracket here. So we'll set this in just like this, set it back in. And then we'll take our new plug, our new bulb, we're gonna plug it in. Boom, just like that. Set the plug up off to the side. And then we're gonna take our needle nose pliers and pull this spring into place. Just like that. And we're gonna take the module, set it up into the cutout, and then we're gonna rotate this around a little bit, making sure that the wires are all out of the way. And we've got the section that says top pointed towards, you guessed it, the top. Now we have our bulb in place. We're gonna take the retainer ring and slide it over the outside of the bulb here. Now, if you're like me and you have the little mesh guard on your headlights, then you're gonna wanna install these clips at the same time. And now while tightening those up, don't go too fast and don't over tighten those, because if you add too much tension to this, it can crack the outer housing of the bulb. And with these Dapper lights, they are made out of glass, so you are gonna wanna make sure that you don't crack them. All right, and with that secure and in place, you might be wondering, hey Cole, wait a minute, you forgot to connect up the turn signal. And there's a small halogen bulb in there, so there is a turn signal actually built into these OE7s. You've got your regular headlight bulb, and then of course the turn signal bulb, which will allow you to run an additional turn signal. Now, in my case, I decided not to wire that up because I do have an LED system on the rear of my car with a specific set of resistors on it. At the end of the day, it's a lot of headache to make it work with that flasher unit in my car specifically. However, if you've got standard halogen bulbs down here and on the back side of your car, you shouldn't have any problem wiring up the turn signal indicator directly into that. And then you have a little bit of additional notification there for people who are driving around. Now we're gonna take our retaining ring, put this back over here. We're gonna rotate it around. You can see there's a small little notch on the top, a little bump. That gets notched over and set on the top, and then just press it into place. Just like that. Now, if you do have a set screw in the bottom, that is when you're gonna install the set screw. Like I said, I don't run one. These clip on really nice and tight, and I haven't found it. And there we have it, one Dapper light installed. And to do this on the other side, you literally repeat the exact same process and plug it in. So let's turn on this light to see how bright it is at standard brightness. Now, that's going to wrap up this episode of Classic Mini DIY. I hope you guys found it helpful. This was a sponsored video, so I hope you guys enjoy some of this content. It is pretty cool to get sponsored by some of these companies, have them send these parts out. If this is something that you'd like to see in the future, especially if you'd like to see things like giveaways in the future as well, definitely let me know in the comment section, which will also enter you to win this LED bulb. But I do want to say a huge thanks to Dapper Lighting for sending these out. But that's going to be it for this episode. So until I see you guys on the next one, enjoy those minis and motor on.